Hey folks, happy Saturday morning rant. What do I want to talk about today? I've been hearing a lot of feedback. I love feedback. Like as a leader, I like to hear people give me feedback. What's working for them? What's not working for them? People on my team will tell you that. People on the team will tell you that. I like to hear from people about how I'm getting it right and how I'm getting it wrong because it helps me to grow. It's not easy to hear feedback. I find it difficult still, even many, many years later. But I find it to be really important to ask people for feedback. So people have been giving me feedback unsolicited. Now, I usually don't give a fuck about unsolicited feedback. But you know, I'm doing this Saturday morning rant. I got a purpose. Try to get these rants to inspire people to show up differently, to behave differently. And so I want to hear the feedback. And so the feedback I've been hearing pretty consistently is like, yo, you curse a lot. I don't want that to be the only thing people hear in these rants. I don't want people to think, you know, when I say the F-bomb that I'm just saying it to be saying. I've had people tell me, can't you find more words to fill in those blanks that, you know, show the wider range of your vocabulary? Can't you express yourself in ways that doesn't alienate people who have a hard time hearing cursing? Don't you realize you have faith-based colleagues that are listening to this and, you know, their ears are precious and should not be subjected to curse words, especially the F-bomb, which people find to be one of the worst curses. I know another one that's worse, but the F-bomb. And so I use it a lot. I thought I use it for emphasis, but it's clear to me that there is a relatively large number of people who would better receive the Saturday morning rants if I didn't say the F word and if I didn't curse so much. And so I said to myself, come on, G, like, you got to really be thoughtful about this. Like, what is the goal of these rants? Like, this is like episode number 43, 44. Like, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? What's the audience you're trying to reach? What's the outcome you're trying to achieve? And if people are giving you this feedback, you got to take it into consideration. You got to be introspective. And so if you notice already, I've been thoughtful about the language that I'm using to express myself. And yesterday evening, I just really sat with myself and thought about, you know, what I wanted to cover today and made a decision. And I decided, like, you know, it is super important for me to people to see value in these rants. And so the people that have a hard time with hearing me curse, fuck you. Go listen to some other shit. That's what the little X in the top right corner is for. You could just shut it the fuck down because I'm not going to stop cursing. I do like fucking 12 to 14 Zoom calls a week. I run 2 businesses. I'm on the phone with a couple hundred people every week. And in those situations, I don't go around saying fuck, fuck, fuck. I do my job and I do it fucking well. And so do the other people on my team, on the teams. And so we get the work done, but we don't curse all over the place. Why? Because I don't need that kind of emphasis during the week when I'm doing my job. But here, this is kind of my thing. I created it. I like it. More people give me good feedback than bad feedback. And most people that are giving me bad feedback are actually looking for a way to say, fuck you, Glenn. But you don't have the courage to say it to my face. So I'm going to keep fucking cursing. Here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about like 5 different things. I want to talk about reproductive rights and white women. Reproductive rights is where it's at right now. It's probably going to be a big decision maker in the election. It's an important issue. If you think it affects white women, guess what? It affects black women worse. And then go further down on the totem pole. Black women who are locked up, forget about it. Reproductive rights are like a fucking joke in our criminal justice system for the most part. So I get it. But my big worry is like criminal justice reform is already losing steam. It's definitely losing money. And guess what? If you lose white women's attention and therefore white men's attention, you're going to lose a tremendous amount of momentum on a criminal justice reform movement, because let's be honest, like, white women thought they was getting their shit together and everything was going well and the country was trending in the right direction and it was a post-racial America and it felt safe to talk about criminal justice reform and crime was down and they were painting murals all over the streets that said hashtag Black Lives Matter and all that shit was the right thing to do. We were in the middle of the woke Olympics, things were going well, and now white women are like, whoa, wait a minute, what the fuck? Like, they fucking with us? Like, what? You don't want us to vote? You don't want us to have reproductive rights? Important shit, but it means they ain't gonna be able to pay attention to black folks the way they used to. Not all of them. I know y'all are like, oh no, I'm a good, strong ally white woman. I get it. I'm glad. Welcome. Glad you're here. But for the most part, this country is heading in a really fucked up direction. and they're taking the brunt of it. And the pathology of that shit just trickles the fuck down, and black people are always at the bottom. If you want to know if there's a recession or a depression coming up, just talk to poor black people. They will tell you like a year and a half, 2 years out. Like they're a better barometer where the fuck the country is going fiscally than anyone on CNN Money. Got that out the way. Concerned about the movement. I'm not in it the way I used to be, but y'all in it. You organizing. You trying to build large coalitions. You trying to show how issues overlap. Keep in mind, white women are distracted. I want to talk about grace and forgiveness. I want to talk about grace and forgiveness because I was at this event this week where grace and forgiveness came up in the form of somebody saying they don't believe in second chances. And it was a black man formerly incarcerated. I'm not going to steal his thunder because he said he's going to do some writing about it. He had a good reason, matches some stuff I've said in the past, but not the real reason I don't believe in second chances. I don't believe in second chances, as I've said in these rants before, because second chances grants one person the power of making a decision about whether another person is worthy. And I just don't get down like that. I know that that comes heavily from religious texts and so on. The idea that you have the ability to forgive someone, but I don't like the power play, because there's already a power play in America where white people get to make the final decisions that affect every other person in this country, black, brown, whatever. And so the idea of second chances means that until they think I'm good, I ain't good. And so I see it play out in the criminal justice reform space. I see it play out in nonprofits. And I really would urge y'all to to extend grace to people. Why? Because when you say to somebody, you should forgive that man or you should forgive that woman, first thing most people say is, do you know what the fuck they did to me? Yeah, I know what they did to you. That's why I'm saying you should forgive them. But people do that because they want the transaction. They want to know what has that person done to earn forgiveness. Except the truth is, forgiveness is never about the other person. It's about your ass letting it go and being free. So grace is not transactional. Grace is given to people who don't even deserve it. Like literally, like you can offer grace to someone to get it off your heart, to get it off your chest, to get it off your mind, to regain some real estate in your big old head and just move on with your life. And yeah, that other person, they're going to move on with their lives. Have they gotten the punishment they deserve? Who the fuck are you to ask that question? Like, that's why we have such a shitty criminal justice system, so bifurcated, where it's good and bad, prosecutor and defense, because someone has to decide whether or not the other person has been punished enough. So that happens in the criminal justice system. It happens through karma. Let karma play itself the fuck out. Offer people grace. Move the fuck on. Especially people who work at nonprofits. My God, like I have seen some of the most punitive people work at nonprofits. When y'all don't get your way, legal extortion, like calling the newspapers, like talking shit about people. Like, I'm surprised y'all ain't writing shit on the bathroom of fucking Penn Station, you know, on the fucking walls. Like, y'all are some punitive motherfuckers. People be like, I believe in grace. I believe in second chances. I believe in circles. I believe in restoration. I believe in justice. I believe in equality. I believe in a fair criminal justice system. I won't even call it a criminal justice system because it's, you know, it is criminal and blah, blah, blah. That shit all sounds good. And then as soon as you feel aggrieved, you turn into the same fucking monster you say you hate. Just pointing that shit out. Like, learn how to offer some grace. Like, if I didn't offer grace to people, I wouldn't even be above ground right now. I got so many people I feel fucked me over. Like, literally, if I didn't wake up in the morning and be like, I'm offering grace to most of them, not Gabriel Sayer, not a handful of other people who I probably can't even mention without a fucking lawyer contacting me. But most people, not everybody. And see, even me, I'm fallible. I don't always get it right. But trust me, I have offered grace to a lot of fucking people. Does that mean I love them and we get along and we kick it? Nah. Like, sometimes they send me messages. They try to reconnect with me on social media. I'd be like, bitch, no, I'm not reconnecting with you. But that doesn't mean that I haven't moved on from the shit that happened. And I'm talking about people who I fucking cared about, supported, elevated, amplified, gave jobs to, gave raises to, gave contracts to. It don't matter. Grace, they're gone. I'm good. I'm done. I'm going to move on with grace. Let's talk about, man, I want to talk about white people in criminal justice reform who feel this weird, creepy need to try to explain why they're here. And I know why, because you have like this imposter syndrome, but you have this tremendous amount of privilege that allows you to show up and lead movements that disproportionately affect people of color. I get it. But let me talk about it for a second. If you here in the criminal justice reform space and your only job is to say the same shit I just said and have it be heard by people who don't give a fuck about what Glenn says, we good. Check a fucking box. Welcome. Have a seat. If you here because you know you could walk in and say some shit to a funder that I would say and have them hear you differently and write you a big check and you moving that check towards important work, welcome. Have a motherfucking seat. Those are reasons to be here. Just last week, this woman wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that said the same shit I said about Research Karen at the Arnold Foundation. And people heard it and they clicked like. I'm good with that. I'm good with the fact that if a white woman says the same thing I say, you hear it differently. Even black folks, by the way. It's not just about white folks. I'm good with that. That's a good reason for you to be in the movement. Like, that's how you build movements. You recognize that you need all types of people in it. But you don't have to explain why you here by talking. So somebody ended up talking about addiction. And they decided that they wanted to highlight that they were able to go to a treatment center for $25,000. And they recognized the difference between black poor people and their inability to get care when they have addiction and the punishment that they face and the putativeness that this country has for black people who are addicted to drugs versus the outcome they got. They even went so far as to differentiate the kind of drugs they were given to help them get over their addiction versus the kind of drugs they think poor black people get. They didn't have to say none of that shit. They could have just been like, I'm white and I'm here to support you. But people get to tell their story. People get to tell their story. But she made it a point to point out that she understood the black experience because of her experience. So in one way, she was trying to show her closeness to black people and their suffering. And at the same time, she was trying to express her privilege as a white woman that had the resources to go out and get treatment. And she works at a large reentry organization in New York City as a senior executive. And I think that was her way of saying, I belong here. Let me tell you why I belong here. So a lot of black folks love that sort of shit. Like, oh, wow, she's an ally. Oh, wow, she had an addiction issue. I remember Gabriel Saya, who helped ruin the whole fucking Close Rikers campaign and try to destroy my whole fucking life and my whole fucking family. Like, that's his whole spiel about his family dealing with addiction, and that is why he has legitimacy in this space. I'm good with you just being here because you white and people listen to you differently and they give you money differently. I'm actually just good with that shit. Or you just here because you think this is the right fucking thing to do and your values align with mine. Believe it or not, that's good enough. That's good enough for you to be here. You don't have to give me the whole woke Olympics, the whole suffering and trauma Olympics. We don't need it. The trauma porn is not necessary. I get it. We're all human beings. We all suffer. You're here because you want to do good work. You're here because you think our criminal justice system doesn't work. The problem with going as far as that woman went is that what she didn't realize is that there were other white people at the table who grew up poor, who had family members who were addicted, and who had much different outcomes than hers. So there was a survey done back in 2013 that said the more you convince white people that black and brown people are disproportionately affected by incarceration, the less they want to do anything about it. So why you keep drawing this thick fucking line? Why we keep beating the drum of race only? It's important, but it ain't the only drum to beat. And if you white and you show up, I don't need you to beat that drum. Black folks are beating that drum. Brown people are beating that drum. Like, use your fucking privilege and don't shrink the fucking tent. We need everybody up under that motherfucker. If you want to build a real movement, if you want to increase the amount of people that care about what the fuck you care about, you don't start out by diminishing other people's suffering. There's other white people who didn't have the outcome you had. And the truth is, if you compare the United States to almost any other country, white folks are also disproportionately incarcerated. And that's hard for some people to hear, especially like the black and brown folks who have just learned from philanthropy and everyone else that it's just really important for you to talk about race and racism alone. Yes, talk about it, but if that's all you're talking about, guess what? You're not being effective. This is America. If you can't get white folks to be like, oh yeah, this shit bothers us too, ain't nothing gonna happen. I've been around long enough, 24 years doing this fucking work. Like, the idea that you're just gonna isolate white people and get some shit done, good luck with that shit. That's just not how the fuck policy change happens, and it's poor organizing. So it was just crazy to sit here and listen to us. But then it got worse, because this woman works at an organization that opposed the closure of Rikers, and she sat there and she was like, oh, you know, this closure of Rikers stuff, I get it, we need to close Rikers. That alone, the whole fucking nodding of the head and talking about closing Rikers as if we're not talking about a fucking torture island that sits just outside of the richest, fucking supposedly most progressive, resource-rich city in the United States, right next to fucking LaGuardia, 200 feet away, and punishing black and brown people all fucking day. And you're like, oh yeah, I get it, close Rikers. But that was just the first part. That part already got my blood boiling. But I was like, Glenn, just keep drinking the wine. Just keep drinking. I don't even drink. I was like, keep drinking the wine. Maybe you'll let her get through her spiel and we can all move on. But it is a salon dinner. And, you know, at a dinner, you're supposed to be able to have some back and forth and shit. And so then she was like, but then there's the building of all these new tall jails. And I don't agree with that. Like, we don't support that. That was it. I looked across the table. I saw some of my colleagues just blood boiling. I could see it. The people who literally work with me to get New York City to say yes to closing Rikers. Like, we didn't get every fucking thing we wanted, but we at least got that. And that shit took a lot of blood, sweat, tears, fighting, infighting, loss of relationships, all sorts, all the nasty shit that you know is involved with movements of blunt fucking instruments. And I'm looking across the table to my left at the people who suffered through those moments. And I'm looking back at this white woman who just got into the work lately and who's trying to prove her legitimacy and who is diminishing the value of a campaign that took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that's not even at the finish line yet, and positions herself as hating the outcomes that she's seeing when, and this is the part, pay attention folks, this is the part, the organization she works for opposed the closure of Rikers at the beginning. The Fortune Society did not think it was a good idea to close Rikers. Why? Because they were getting millions of dollars in funding when we were trying to shut the place down. And for some reason, they thought that millions of dollars in funding was going to go away if we shut Rikers. First of all, that millions of dollars in funding actually went away about a year ago. And now they're getting it back. Great, good for them. People at Rikers need support. At the same time, they were the first ones who also got value out of the Close Rikers campaign. Why? Because the mayor was so fucking scared of us that he put $30 million on the streets for reentry organizations so that they would like tamper down, chill out, reconsider their role on the campaign. But it just really ticked me off that she actually worked for one of the largest reentry organizations who could have been the wind behind our fucking backs with closing Rikers, but was more concerned with their close relationship with the mayor. I wasn't surprised. Used to work there. I remember Bloomberg used to call there, remind them that he gave them grants, and ask them were they doing any voter registration and education work. I knew what the fuck that meant. Quid pro quo like a motherfucker. But having this woman at the end of the table saying that shit just got my blood boiling. So on the one hand, I was pissed off because she was diminishing so many poor white people who could actually help build a momentum of an effort to reduce mass incarceration. And on the other side, I was pissed off because she literally had not done her homework, or as someone else said who was there, maybe she did her homework, but she definitely wasn't ready for the test. That's what the fuck I knew I was going to rant about this week, because that shit was so fucking performative. It was so performative. And I always remember that survey years ago that said the more you convince white people that black people go to prison more than them, the more they're like, too bad, good for them. So you want to be right or you want to be effective? You decide. So, in the spirit of grace, I didn't mention her name, so I'm offering grace, willing to move past it. But also not going to sit there and work hard for 6 years to have the money to say what the fuck I want and let this woman sit there and do the kind of shit that I have to live with for 17 years. I'm just not going to do it anymore. And I know that that means that people are going to find reasons to hate me. And I'm actually okay with that, because so many people fucking hate me for reasons that are not even fucking accurate, that I'm going to give people good reasons to hate me. which is that I'm going to keep speaking up and keep being who the fuck I am, and I'm going to keep speaking on what I think is right. Does that mean it's your truth? No, it ain't your truth. It's my truth. Doesn't have to be your truth. I'm not here to give you your truth. I'm here to give you my truth. But if you listen to it as if you're just listening for your truth, then you're probably going to miss the message and you're going to miss the value in it. I don't know how many times I cursed in this. I actually think I avoided cursing quite a bit. But y'all know how this is. Get this shit off my chest. Go on with my Saturday. Go on with my weekend. Don't let people steal my rainbow. Definitely don't let people steal history and rewrite it. I hope y'all do the same. Don't let nobody steal your rainbow. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week. Peace.